grew up poor, and they were farmers. They grew up in Ireland, which was a poor country, and it was after the potato famine, so things were not good. And they had big families. I think my mother had 7 in her family, and my father had 6 or 7 in his. It's a funny thing, they grew up on the other side of a mountain, one on either side, and never knew each other, from the same county in Ireland. And they didn't meet each other until they were in the United States. They didn't have cars, remember, so they had donkeys and carts, so they didn't really have much transportation. So it was a very small life. I mean, there was really nothing in Ireland. There was really no employment. First of all, when they came through, you had to go in front of a doctor, and they would inspect you. They looked for lice. They looked for check to see if you had TB, any kind of disease, any kind of lacerations. People were scared. That was the thing, after making this terrible journey, where they couldn't be sent back, because if they found something wrong with you, this is what they told me, they would just, you went back, you were deported back before you were ever really imported. It must have been quite a scene, with thousands of people milling around Ellis Island. The thing that I can't believe is, at that young age, to leave your parents and go on a ship. The good thing about them is at least they knew the language, unlike Italians, who must have and Germans and people like that had a very tough time not knowing the language. What other country would they choose? America is the home of the free and the land of the brave. I mean, it was known to accept immigrants, and they thought the streets were paved with gold, because other Irish immigrants would come back to Ireland and sit in the pub and come to parties and talk about how grand New York was, and Chicago and Boston, and they believed them until they got here and found out that they had a lot of hard work. My mother left first. Her sister came when she was, I think, maybe 16. My mother probably was maybe 18. She came to this country, and she worked as a cook. She had lovely people that she worked for, and they were good to her for all her life. I mean, they used to come and visit myself and my 2 brothers for Christmas and all, and they were just great, great people. My father, in the meanwhile, was like 21 or 22 when he came here. And he had been, I think, in the Irish army for a short while, because the English had sent over what they call the Black and Tans, and there was bad war. Then there was a civil war, and things were not good. So I think that my father was a hero, and I think he probably thought it was best to leave. And he left his father and mother and brothers, and he was the youngest of the children. So that was a tough blow for them. But he came here. He found the streets were not paved with gold, but he was a very smart man. He got a good job. He went to school, got a degree as a practical nurse at the time, because remember, then people in Ireland were not well educated. I mean, if they went to the 6th, 7th grade, that was a lot for farmers. So here you have this big influx of people that had a funny accent, and believed in Catholicism, and usually had a lot of kids, and they were taking over. They were like just taking over, and I guess people resented that. They did not like the Irish. First of all, it was a very waspy society, Anglo-American, and they really didn't like the new religion coming in, because they thought we were papists. And they didn't want people taking away their jobs and all. They used to have signs that said, "Irish need not apply." So if you were Irish, don't even bother coming for an interview, or don't bother signing papers or filling out papers, because we're not hiring you. Remember, when the Irish came, as with any a new culture comes off the boat, they hang together. They lived all together. They seemed to migrate towards one another. They thought there was no better place than America. Even years later, my mother said she would never care if she ever went back to Ireland, even though that was her home, that America was a wonderful country. They were very patriotic people and loved America. And she met this man who just happened to be a cousin of my father's. Is that strange? And they invited him over. They were going home after dinner, and my mother and father were going in, and of course my mother had been here a couple of years in America, so she wasn't what we call a greenhorn. But my father, who had just arrived, was very much the greenhorn. So he went into the turnstile, put his nickel in, that's what it used to be, a nickel, into the turnstile. I went right through, and she said, "Listen, greenhorn, come back. In this country, you pay for the lady." Then they didn't meet each other again for like 7 years. They didn't see each other again. And then another time, right after St. Patrick's Day, they got together again. And my uncle said, "Listen, let's try it one more time." And they did. And they met St. Patrick's Day, and they were married Easter Sunday. And 2 years later, they had me. They lived in the Bronx when they got married. No, they lived on Park Avenue, but not the Park Avenue in the Bronx. And then from there, they moved to South Bronx, which was a lovely, lovely neighborhood then. And they stayed there for about 9 months and then moved. I think Tommy was maybe a year old when we moved. And we went to a private house in Castlehead area. It was very pretty. It was a nice first time I ever lived in, knew about a house. And from there we went to Cypress Avenue, back to where on 39th Street, where my mother and father had first started. And there I stayed a long time. And the three of us went to school. It was the most wonderful life that you could have. And I just wish that all the children of today could have had the life that I had growing up in the Bronx. First of all, there were a lot of Irish, yes, but there were a lot of Italians, there were Germans, there were Jewish people. My best friends as a young girl were these Jewish sisters in the building. We lived, and remember, they would call it a tenement. I did not think it was a tenement. It was a beautiful brick double house with a courtyard, and we lived on the 5th floor. And that was after coming from a private house, so that was but you got so used to it. I could run up and down those stairs, and that's why I think I have thin legs today. I think my legs are in good shape. You couldn't do anything that there wasn't somebody looking at you. You were on your best behavior because they were all your mother. Let's put it that way. Oh, we just had so much fun. We had a park about 5 blocks away that we used to go to, St. Mary's Park. There were swings there, and there was little hills, which we thought were mountains, and later on they put in a pool, and then we were near Randall's Island, so in the summer we would go walk over the bridge. We'd go down to Yorkville Center, which was on 86th Street, and they'd have dances, Irish dances for different counties, and we would go there and we'd dance, we'd have a wonderful time. And of course the guys on the block used to come, and we had a good time. And we were never bored, never, never, never. And I know I've heard that from my own kids and from my grandkids. Well, my father used to say, only boring people get bored. My father worked. He worked 2 jobs, all right? He worked as a practical nurse in Ward's Island, which was a mental institution. And he worked for the Railway Express. And the Railway Express was a very good job. Every year, right before Christmas, they were always very, very busy, but just 2 days or 2 days after Christmas, they'd lay them all off. Same thing around Easter time. So it was a lot of my father used to call it furloughed. You were furloughed and you get this telegram, and of course, that's no way to live when you have a family. Whenever you thought that things were bad, not that you knew because they didn't tell you, but you could see it, in their faces and all. The next thing they'd pull out $1,000 savings bond, which they had been saving up. So we never were hungry. Never. I never knew we were poor. I didn't know we were poor until we grew up, and people said, oh, the South Bronx, you must have been poor. We always had food, we always had new clothes, we always had Christmas presents. What happened, which was very sad, my mother got sick when I was in my junior year of high school. And she had cancer, and they found it in April or May of that year. And then she went to the hospital, then she came out, and that summer she was home with us. And she was dying, actually. I didn't know it, I was so young, I was just 16. My father brought us into the room, my brother Kevin and Tommy, and told us that my mother was going to die. And that was an awful thing for a 16 and a, what you going to be, 15, and a guy 12 to hear. And I told him it wasn't so. That, we would pray and, she would get better, and we couldn't believe that they were just, nervous. She lasted the summer, but then on the 16th of September, she was in a coma. So I went into my brother's. We had to wait for Tommy. When Tommy woke up, we told him he went crazy. And that was very, very hard, very, very hard. And then they came in and said that she was definitely dead. I can imagine how she must have felt leaving 3 kids. But I had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful father, and he took good care of us. And we believed in God, and I think my mother watched over us. And my 2 brothers became police. Then they became sergeants, lieutenants, went to the FBI Academy. Me, I went to the phone company. And then I had my next career, which was getting married to a guy that was that I really liked. He was out of the Navy, went to NYU. We moved out of the apartment because we had 1 child and we were expecting another, and it was only a 1-bedroom. And we bought a washing machine, and the landlord had a fit that we had the washing machine. So my husband said, I'm going to remove my wife and child and the washing machine, and we moved. Well, we went to Pleasantville, which was quite far away from Lincoln Hall, but still, I never knew about Pleasantville, but it was a lovely place. It was just very pretty. All of our friends had gone to Long Island. He didn't want to go to Long Island because he was worried about crossing the bridges. You have to cross a bridge every day. So with Westchester, you didn't, and he would be commuting into the Bronx. So we bought a nice house, and we bought the new baby. She was 3 weeks old into the new house. We had 6 children, and all great kids. He worked for the phone company as I did. Of course, once I had the first child, I left work. And then I had 4 together, 4 and 5 years. And so once they were a certain age, I thought, well, I want to do something. You know how you feel at a certain age, in your 30s, 40s, I guess. There's got to be something to do here. And of course, they were all in school. So I thought, real estate would be a good thing because I could work when I want to, and I could be home for them when I want to. And it seems easy. So I got my real estate license. My husband definitely was great support, always was. And got that. My father was living near me, and I told you what a wonderful man he was. So if I had to have an appointment when there was nobody around to watch a kid that was maybe sick or something, my father would come over. So he was great help, and I loved real estate. It was just a wonderful career. You met all kinds of people. Anyway, I did that for 40 years, and I became a broker. I had my own office, so it was fun. Everything I did in life, I've had a great life. Everything I've ever done, I've loved my grandkids. Now, from just Rich and I, we have 14 grandchildren. 2 play the bagpipes. 1 plays the drums for Irish band. Thanks to my husband, who was very Irish, although he wasn't born in Ireland, but he very Irish and loved the traditions and had a great singing voice, and was just a fun guy. In fact, Pop, as they called him, my husband, took Molly, the eldest grandchild, to Irish dancing lessons. That was Molly, the eldest, and now they're taking the 13th and 14th. Rich is no longer with us, but their parents are taking those two girls to Irish step dancing. So it stays even till today. We are a family. You want to know your roots. You are what you were. What people were is what you are. And I think I can look at all my grandchildren and see everybody that my parents, my brothers, I can see the looks, I can see the way they act. Enjoy the people that are around you. Enjoy them, love them, do everything you can for them. Because I know we're going to meet again. I mean, I do believe that, I think, I hope.